This is Gemara and Beitzah, Daf Dalit. All the learning for this month, the month of Elul, as we wind down the month of Elul, going into the new year, has been sponsored. The Zecher Nishmas, Esther Rezel Basar Meir, her Neshamash have an incredible aliyah, the learning of this chos of the entire Chabura. Of course, all the men of Vega Chaim and Sar Shalom Simon Rezel Sar Bas Kenendel to Basim as Chaisa Yisol Menindel, the Brad Min Shalei Shom as Naomi Bashafigu Shulchan Shmo and Tiladina Mechan Rezel Mechayves Mina, Lima Rachas to Vemis at Dinah Mission Mindas Viva Vega Rodna Chalasuna Telehuva Rivka Basasheva, Natali Sim Mechel Esther, Besoik Shar Chali Yisrael as well as Chashir and Shir Miriam Ambas Arizal Gittel. We're holding on the very bottom of Gimel Amid Beis. We pulled up about 3 lines from the bottom as we explained that we're going with the Tana de Litre. So a quick recap of exactly the end of this Gemara. I know we did a little bit fast. Basically what's going on, you'll see in front of you, I highlighted the key points in the Gemara, is that we're trying to figure out that the Beitzah said in this Arva Be'elef Kulam Asurais, that even if it gets mixed with 1,000 other entities, it's all Asur. And the big question was, what is the case that we're discussing? What type of egg that's never going to be batal? So the Gemara's final attempt, and that's where we're going to hone in on, is v'chitema beitzah chashuva loibala. Maybe an egg is a chashuva entity; it's an entity onto its own, and therefore it's not going to be batal. The Gemara said now we have to define what does it mean on davar chashuv. So there's a machlekes Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Is it kol shedarkei limnais or es shedarkei limnais? Very fine nuance difference between the two. The difference being, is it something that is exclusively sold by individual portions? If something is exclusively sold by individual portions, that's what makes it chashiv. Therefore, it will not be batal. That's not an egg. An egg is not only sold by number. That's ridiculous. If it's something as shadarko, that at times it happens, meaning that it is sold in estimation as well, but it's not exclusively sold that way, then it would make sense to be a davar chashiv. So that is what the Gemara said. 4 lines into the white lines, Hanicha l'Reish Lakish. And according to Reish Lakish, it makes a lot of sense because he says kol shedarkei limnais. So an egg could fit into that category. Egg could fit in the category, and therefore an egg is a davar chashiv. And therefore it's not batal afilu ve'alef leibala. But according to Rav Yochanan, what are you going to tell me? According to Rav Yochanan, what is the explanation of the Beitzah? Again, the Beitzah that said in his arva be'elef kulan asurais. So on that, the Gemara answer, we're going with the Tana de Litras Concise, which we're going to discuss in one moment. What this Tana is, this Tana about these figs. But that Tana holds kol davar even something that is counted afilu b'derabanan, not a deraisa, is loy batal. Meaning, now we can understand that when the Beitzah said that afilu be'elef lein is arva, we don't have to go so far. Because if there is an opinion that holds that even on a din derabanan, it will not be nullified, certainly the kol shkein b'deraisa in our case of Safik Treifais, certainly it will not be batal. And that was the answer of the Gemara. Now we pick up from there, Ditinan, 3 lines from the bottom, says the Gemara, as we learned in a Mishnah. Litra kitziyah shedarsa alpi igel. We have a litra, which is a quantity of kitziyahs of dried figs that you pressed, your darsa, you press it alpi igel into the mouth of a mold. Basically, they would take the figs, and they would cut off the stems, and then they would shove them into these big round molds, shove lots and lots of figs, which would make a fig cake, similar to like a big round cheese. And therefore they would shove it in. But the problem here is we have an item that is a din derabanan, Rashi speaks down. Now why this is derabanan truma, the case that we're discussing, is a big point amongst discussion, that it says that we're discussing with figs, which Rashi says are din derabanan. Why they're derabanan is a big discussion. Let's leave it at that. So something that is forbidden mid derabanan, and you push it into the eagle, you push it into the mold, and then you're not sure. You go, I messed up. I put truma into the mold. I can't do that. But you don't know. But is the eagle darsa? You don't remember which one. You have all these different igulim, all these different molds. You have 100 molds in your house because you're making all these figs and you're pushing figs into all of them. And by accident, in one of them, you put a fig, which is truma midrabanan. You don't know which one. Or case number 2, al pi chavis, you're pushing the figs at the top of a barrel. Ve'ni is a chavis. Darso, which barrel you put it in? Al pi kaveris, or you're pushing it into a basket. Ve'ni is a kaveris darsa. So 3 cases, basically one theme, that you put a din derabanan and truma, which is forbidden, somewhere within a tremendous mixture. What is the story? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Meir Meir says it's a machlokes. Rav Eliezer Oimer, according to Rav Eliezer, move over to today's Daf Dalet Amar Aleph. According to Rav Eliezer, Roines El Yoines Kiloin Perudois. Again, we have this fig cake, and we know that on top of one of them is something which is truma midrabanan. So we view the top as if it's separated, and since we could view it as if it's separated, we now could view everything as one, and therefore as if everything is mingled together. And now the lower parts, meaning I have these dried figs on top and the dried figs all around. So the lower ones, will effectively have will nullify the upper ones. So again, it's a bit ironic, counterintuitive, so let's hone in that even though it's when you separate it, therefore we can view everything together, therefore it will be batil, and therefore it's not going to be a problem. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer, and again, how this relates back to us, we'll see in a moment. Comes like Rabbi Yeshua, and he says, "Im yesham mea pumin." If there's 100 mouths, if there's 100 different of these cheesecakes or these fig cakes, yalu, then it's batil. Ve'im lav hapumin asurim. If not, then the mouths of all these cakes are aser. Vashulayim mutarim, and that which is underneath. He says you can split it, just take off the top layer of every single one of these cakes, because one of them is forbidden, and the rest is going to be mutter. That is explanation number one of what's going on in this Beitzah. Rav Yehuda argues and he explains. Rav Eliezer Aimer, Im yishamei pumin. If there's 100 mouths, yalu it's batal. V'im lav apumin asurin. V'ashulayim mutar. Rav Yeshua Aimer. He says what we need to know. Says Rav Yeshua, afilu yesham shalosh me'os pumin. You have a tremendous quantity. Still, says Rav Yeshua, lo yalu. It's not going to be nullified. And that's Rabbi Yeshua is going to be the opinion that we're looking at, that even though it's only Chuma D'Rabbanan, what is the case over here? Says Rabbi Yeshua, it's a Davar Shebeminyan, and Kol Davar Shebeminyan is going to be Loi Batal. That is the opinion that we're looking for. And again, how it relates back to our discussion of the egg on Amud Beis yesterday, that said that Afilu Ba'elav Loi Batal, we're saying, if Rabbi Yeshua holds here on a Din D'Rabbanan, it's not Batal, certainly when we have a Din D'Oraisa, it will not be Batal. Now the Brisa just concludes and says, Darsa Be'egel, if you press it into the mold, you don't know which one. Divrei Akol Yalu, everyone holds that it's going to be nullified, which of course is a almost ridiculous statement. We just had a whole Beitzah, we had a whole machlokes when it's batal, and the Beitzah says, if you push it in, everyone says it's batal. That's crazy. Says the Gemara, Divrei Akol, Hainu Pluktayu, that was all machlokes we just spoke about. Amarab Haba, is what it means. Darsa be'egel v'niyoteh be'eza makoim igel darsa. If you push it, until now, what were we discussing? Not disgusting. What do you push in? You know it's somewhere on the top. But let's say you push it into this big fig and you don't know where it is. Let's find the German north or south part of it. Then it's going to be batal. Why is it going to be batal? Because it's no longer a davar shebeminyan. The whole discussion began was it's a davar shebeminyan. It's a chashava entity. It's something important. It's something onto its own. But if you don't know wherever it is, then you have the regular rule of batal. That is how Rav Papa explains the end of the Beitzah. Rav Ashi Amar comes on Rav Ashi. Now we're going back. We're going back to our Mishnah. We had our Mishnah, and we had a machlokes Rav Yosef and Rav Yitzchak, which we're now going to go back and offer another opinion on. Back yesterday in Gimel Amud Beis, we had a case of a suffix egg. That's how we got into this whole discussion. And we wanted to know what was the case of the suffix egg. When was it laid? What was the story? And the Gemara there wanted to find a case of a D'Oraisa. Because if you remember, there were two parts of the Beitzah. Actually, we'll take one moment, we'll go back, and we'll see over here that there were two parts of the Beitzah. What did the Beitzah here say? Let's look at the Beitzah. We're actually looking right now in Gimel Amud Beis. I know it's a little bit late, but we'll make up for the time in a moment. We're looking at Gimel Amud Beis. We're about 10 lines down that the Beitzah said, if you have an egg that was born on Shabbos, an egg that was born on Yontif, don't move it, don't cover anything, etc. But you're allowed to just cover it up and preserve it. Why? So it doesn't break. Usfeika Asura. So that's what we were discussing. What was this case of Sfeika Asura? And we wanted to make it into a case of Sfeika D'Oraisa. And the Gemara said, Rav Yitzchak came along and said, it's a case of Sfeika D'Rabbanan, and therefore it should be L'Kula. And then we said, but then why is, then the end of the Beitzah made no sense, that it's not going to be Batal. If it's a D'Rabbanan, it should be Batal, and therefore we went along and said, it's a case of Safek Treifa. So now, today, comes along the Gemara, comes along Rav Ashi with a new way of learning that whole story. Rav Ashi Amar, now we're back to Daled Amud Aleph, about 12 lines down. First one line is Hakol. Rav Ashi Amar says, Rav Ashi, Olim Safik Yom Tov Safichol. Really, you're not sure when was the egg laid? Was it on Yontif or prior? Have a Davar Sheish Lematir, Davar Sheish Lematir, and if you look at the Rabban, like Batal, another rule, another fascinating rule. Davar Sheish Lematirim. Something which is going to be mutter tomorrow, don't eat it today. You have an egg. Right now, what's the problem with this egg? It might have been born in Yontif. Wonderful. But therefore, when's it going to be mutter? Today, I'm not sure. But tomorrow, after Yontif, of course, it's going to be mutter. And therefore, it will not be batal, even though it's only a din d'Rabbanan. But therefore, it's not going to be batal, and that's going to be the case of the Beitzah. Tanya, we learned in a Beitzah. And now this wraps up yesterday's discussion. Again, we have 4 ways of learning our Mishnah, 4 ways of learning what was the case of Beitzah Shenolda B'Yantif. Says the Gemara, this Rav Eliezer learned to like the opinion of Beis Shammai. If you remember in our Mishnah, Beis Shammai was of the opinion that you're allowed to eat the egg. That's a Beitzah. Now the Gemara says, what's exactly the case of Beitzah? They allowed to eat the egg and the mother. This should be a bit reminiscent of the Gemara from yesterday. If it's a hen that's sitting there to be eaten, pshita, of course you can eat it. Because it's not muksa, it's a regular chicken. Really, it's a hen that's set aside for the eggs, and therefore it's muksa. So says the Gemara, 1 second. So everything should be asur. Why does the Brayse say it's all mutter? Just like you would be allowed to eat the mother if you want, you're also allowed to eat the egg because of the mother. What's the case? Says the Gemara. You bought a hen, stam, no intent. You didn't intend to use it for eggs or for chicken. You're not sure. So now what happens? Nishchata, if you go and you shech that hen, Hovra Roy proved that this hen is sitting to be eaten because you shechted it to eat, and therefore everything's fine. If you don't shecht it over, then you know that it's sitting to be there for the eggs, and therefore that's going to be the case that it's muksa. So what do we see in the Beitzah? That the egg has to do with the mami. Ramari Amar comes along Ramari with a fascinating answer. Again, we have a Beitzah that says Rav Eliezer says you can eat the egg and the mami. Beitzah ti'achal hi v'ima. Says the Gemara, says Ramari Amar, no, Kozma. It's a katani, it's an exaggeration. It doesn't mean you really can eat the mother hen. It's an exaggeration. Fascinating teretz. Says the Gemara, Titania, I'll bring you a proof that we sometimes talk this way. Again, it's you need a proof for such a thing. We're taking a Beitzah, we're saying it says you can eat it and its mother, and it doesn't really mean it. It's one big exaggeration. Says the Gemara, how do I know Tanya Achir Ma'imrim? Says Achir Misham Eliezer Beitzah Diachli V'ima Ve'efrayach V'kli Basa. We have a different Beitzah. This Beitzah quotes Rav Eliezer saying even more extreme. You can eat the egg, you can eat the mother, and you can eat the shell. You can eat the shell as well. You can eat the shell, that's a little bit crazy. Says the Gemara, Mai, Kli Basa, what does it mean that you could eat the shell? Ilema Klipa Mamish. If you're going to tell me it means you're actually eating the shell of the egg, Klipa Basa Chili, can you eat a shell? Elo Efrayach V'kli Basa. You're eating the chick while it's in the shell. Says the Gemara, 1 second. On the first wide line, the Rabbanan debate Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov, so that's going to come up later in the Masechta. That when the chick comes out to the world, when it pops out, then we have a debate what the status is. Excuse me, but if it did not yet hatch, there's no debate at all. Everyone agrees that you're not allowed to eat that. So what's going on over here? It means it's an exaggeration. It doesn't mean really that you could eat it while it's inside. It just means the shell, which of course is just an exaggeration. You don't need shells. Fascinating teretz. Says the Gemara, new Gemara, 3 lines into the wide lines. It's Mari learned in a Beitzah. Now we're going to begin the fascinating discussion. It's going to be today, it's going to be tomorrow. Whenever we have Yontif and Shabbos back to back, 2 days, this is going to be the big discussion of Kedusha Achas, Shtei Kedushais, the Sveiket Rabbanan, Yontif and Chutzars, why it's going to be 2 days. Let's get to it. Itmar says the Gemara, case number 1 is Shabbos v Yontif. We have Shabbos and Yontif back to back, whether it's Shabbos, Sunday or Friday Shabbos. Rav Amar, Nolda Bezeh, Sur Bezeh. What's born on one day, you're not allowed to eat the next day. Rav Yochanan Amar, Nolda Bezeh, Mutaris Bezeh. You're allowed to eat it the next day. So we don't know exactly the case. Says the Gemara, what's the machlokes? Maybe Rav holds that when I have Yontif and Shabbos, fascinating Havamina, they're both one Kedusha. Not 2 days of Yontif. Yontif to Shabbos, they're both one big entity of Kedusha. And therefore says Rav, if something born on the first day, you can't eat on the second day because it's all the same Kedusha. It's all the same sanctity. Says the Gemara, it can't be. Who are these four Zakanim, the name of Rav Eliezer? They say the Amar Shtei Kedusha same. So can't be Rav holds that. Ella, what's going on over here? Chana derabba, back from that base. Do you need something to be prepared and designated and set aside before Yontif? That's the machlokes. Rav is like chana derabba. Rav holds with such a concept. Therefore, since the egg is born on Yontif itself or Shabbos, you can't eat it the next day. Rav Yochanan is like chana derabba. And now the Gemara points out Ketanai, and in truth it's a machlokes Tanaim whether we hold with this concept of a Chana Derabba, V'yechina b'yom hashishi, if everything has to be prepared prior to Shabbos and Yontif. No, the B'Shabbos Yachal b'Yontif Yachal b'Shabbos. Rav Yehuda Imer Mishram Eliezer Adaini machlokes. When something is born on Shabbos, whether you can eat it on Yontif or vice versa, says Rav Eliezer, is a Rav Yehuda Imer Mishram Eliezer is a machlokes. B'Shamei Imreim Teachal b'Simram Lei Teachal. And therefore says the Gemara, whether we hold of a Chana Derabba, whether we hold of this new concept that we learned about in Daf Beis, that everything needs to be prepared and designated and set aside. Of course, it's not referring to regular rules of Achana, of preparing for after Shabbos and Yontif. This means that if a food was not designated for Shabbos or Yontif use beforehand, it will not be able to be used. That is a machlokes Tanoim. Says the Gemara, let's bring a few stories to prove this point. There was a certain host, a certain inn that had eggs from Yontif to Shabbos. Also, he came in front of Rav Barava and Amarle, can I cook them today, roast them, or particularly on Yontif, and eat it tomorrow on Shabbos? Again, the egg was born today on Yontif. Can I roast it and eat it tomorrow on Shabbos? Amarle, my daitach. What are you thinking? Rav Yochanan, that when we have a debate between Rav and Rav Yochanan, we basket like Rav Yochanan, but I feel Rav Yochanan like a sharia luguma ba'lamachar. Rav Yochanan only allows when you have a Yontif after Shabbos. Rav Yochanan says in Yontif you can eat the egg, or Shabbos, vice versa. But Rav Yochanan only allows it on the second day legoima to swallow it. Avol biyoymei. Law, Rav Yochanan never said on the day that something was born. On that day, everyone agrees you can't touch it. So you want to know, can you roast it today and eat it tomorrow? Of course not, says the Gemara. V'atanya, and of course, very important, Rashi over here points out this is a proof, this is a raya. V'atanya, says the Gemara, you can't move it not to cover up a vessel, not to hold up a bed. And therefore that's the proof that on the day it's born, for sure you can't do anything. So you want to know, can you roast it for tomorrow? The answer is unequivocally, absolutely not. Says the Gemara, another story, 4 lines from the bottom. It was in Rapapa, some say it was someone else. He had some eggs from Shabbos and he wants to know about their status the next day in Yontif. Can I eat it tomorrow on Yontif? Amarle Rapapa responds, come ask me tomorrow. Why? The Rav Lumuki Amayra Aluyem Yamadava Lechavre. Because Rav would never have a Moira, which was a person, which was someone who would expand the drasha. They would give the drasha, they would have someone standing by their side explaining it to everyone else. Rav would not have such a person, such an Moira there from one Yontif to the next day. Why? Mishum Shechris, because of getting drunk. And Rashi points out the reason what's going on over here is, as we know, the Gemara increases that you're not allowed to paskin halacha after you drink wine, and therefore on Yontif, after they have a big Yontif suit, the Rav would say, I can't paskin any halacha. So it says Rav Papa, when he was asked whether I could eat this egg tomorrow on Yontif, he said, come ask me tomorrow. Today it's after the Suda, I already had some wine at the meal, and therefore I can't paskin. Of course, it doesn't mean that he was drunk. It just means the paskin halacha, even with a little bit of wine, is not so simple. Kias lamachar amar leisu, he came the next day, and he asked Rav Papa, what's the story? Moving over to Dalit Amabes. Yes, Dalit Amabes. Ika hashta ish. So Rav Papa responded, if you didn't wait until now, I would have made a mistake. You know what I would have told you? Meaning, if I answered you yesterday, says Rav Papa, I would have said, Rav Yochanan. That's what I would have said. But in reality, which would mean it's mutter on the second day. It's not true. Rava Paskins, we go with Rav in this scenario, whether L'kula or Chumra, 3 three different cases. This is one of the three, and therefore the egg says that Rabba is going to be forbidden on the next day on Shabbos. Again, an egg born on Yontif is going to be forbidden on Shabbos. That is how Rabba paskin, like Rav, the Psak Halacha, three cases follows Rav. We're going to see today, I think, one or two more of those cases, and tomorrow this rule will come back up again. Omer Rav Yochanan says, Rav Yochanan 4 lines down, Rav Yochanan now explains why does Rav Yochanan hold what he holds. Eitzim shenashum min adekel b'Shabbos also l'sikim b'Yontif. Eitzim, wood that falls on Shabbos, you're not allowed to use it for firewood the next day on Yontif. Al teshiveni Beitzah, and don't ask me for the case of the egg, which you know that I hold is mutter the next day on Shabbos or Yontif. My timer Beitzah misham debiyamin ami chazi legoma. Says Rav Yochanan, why do I hold again Shabbos to Yontif, Yontif to Shabbos doesn't make a difference. An egg born on the first day, can I eat on the second day? Rav Yochanan says yes. Yet when a tree falls on the first day, you can't use that tree the next day. What's going on? It should be the same case. Explains Rabbi Yochanan, no. Because what's the reason you're allowed to eat egg the next day? Mishom, really, you could swallow the egg. There is a usage of an egg on the first day as well. And yet we said, don't do that. Leave the egg until tomorrow. So therefore, everyone's going to know, made the other that really is forbidden on that day that it was born. Eitzim, when it comes to wood has no usage on the day that it fell, because it's falling on Shabbos. There's no usage for the wood on Shabbos. If I allow you tomorrow to use it for firewood, you're going to think really yesterday was allowed. And there's just no usage for it. So says Rav Yochanan, because of that, to safeguard this potential mistake that you might think it's allowed that it falls off a tree, says Rav Yochanan, it's even forbidden tomorrow. You cannot even use it for firewood. And Amar Rav Masna, in a very similar vein, says Rav Masna, you have an oven outdoors, and trees fall, the branch falls straight into the oven. Beautiful, you get firewood. You're allowed to add on extra wood. That wood which fell in, of course, is forbidden. It came from a tree on Yontif. But you're allowed to add in extra wood and fire up the oven. Ask the Gemara 1 second. How are you allowed to do that when you mix up the coals, when you mix up the wood? You're inevitably going to be moving that which is this, so the branch that fell in Shabbos or Yontif. Yontif actually answers the Gemara. Since the majority is mother, it's batal, it's nullified. So now 1 second, before we continue, let's just get our bearings. Rav Yochanan said that when wood falls in Shabbos, you're not allowed to use it for Yontif. What's the reason? It was a gezeira, it was a decree. When it comes to the egg, says Rav Yochanan, ostensibly on the day that it was laid, it has a usage. So when we say don't use it, wait for tomorrow, people realize, it wasn't mutter yesterday. But wood that falls on Shabbos and you want to use it on Yontif, wood on Shabbos has no usage. So if we let you use it the next day on Yontif, people are going to think that the previous day when it fell, it really was allowed as well. And therefore, says Rav Yochanan, we make a decree, you can't use it the next day in Yontif. Comes in the Gemara now with Rav Masna with a similar case, that wood fell from a tree directly into the oven, says Rav Masna, add in other prepared woods, it's all batal, and therefore you could use that oven on Yontif. Now, the Gemara is a bit bothered. How are you allowed to do that? What's the case? You have a piece of branch that fell off a tree. That piece of branch is forbidden to use. And it's sitting in an oven. So what do we tell you to do? Put another wood which is allowed to be used. Says Gemara, 1 second. And therefore it will be nullified. You're not allowed to cause Isser to be nullified initially. It's a din d'Rabbanan. Utanan, we learned in the Mishnah, answers the Gemara, a very, very important answer. Hani mili b'daraisa. Only on a din d'araisa are you not allowed to bottle it. If we have a din d'araisa in front of us, and you want to know, can I now affect nullification? You're not allowed to. The Rabbanan said you're not allowed to nullify something. However, if the whole Isser at hand is only a din d'Rabbanan, there's no problem being Mivatal it. Ask the Gemara 1 second. According to Rav Ashi, that says anything which could be a mutter tomorrow, it's not nullified today. Michael and Meimar, what are you going to say? The branches, it's true, are muksa today, but tomorrow the branches are going to be mutter. Rav Ashi holds there's no bittul. We only have bittul nullification if something is purely usser. But if tomorrow it's going to be allowed, we say wait till tomorrow. Don't nullify it today. So how does Rav Ashi learn this case? Answers the Gemara again, another big rule. That's only when the Isser is Be'en. Over here, the Isser is getting burnt up, and therefore it's not a problem being a Mevatel it. Even Rav Ashi, who normally holds, you have to wait until afterwards on a Davar She'ishla Matirin, something which is going to become Mutter, you have to wait till tomorrow. Over here he is Greece. Why? Because it's getting fully burnt up. It's Mar, we're just going to begin the next sugya, and then we're going to get more into this tomorrow. This is case number 2. So case number 1 was Shabbos to Yontif, Yontif to Shabbos. We had a machlekes. We got a little bit involved in maybe Rav holds Kedusha Achasi, and the Gemara shut that down. Now says the Gemara a similar case. When we have 2 days of Yontif in Chutz La'aretz. Rav Amar Nolda B'zeh Mutaris. B'zeh Rav Asi Amar Nolda B'zeh Surah B'zeh. Is something born on one day going to be allowed on the next day? Machlekes Rav and Rav Asi. Says the Gemara in the first wide line, Leimuk Asav Rav Asi Kedusha Achasi. Maybe, why did Rav Asi again say it's also? This is similar to the discussion we had in Amid Aleph. Why would it be forbidden born on day 1 for day 2? Because they're all one entity of Kedusha. And therefore that which is born on day 1 is also on day 1. It's also also on day 2. Says the Gemara, you can't say that. For Rav Asi had a fascinating practice. When there were 2 days of Yantiv and Chutz, you know what he did? He made Havdalah in between. So says the Gemara. So clearly Rav Asi doesn't hold it's Kedusha Achas. Answers the Gemara, Rav Asi Suki Misafkele, he was machmer both ways, but it could be that Rav Asi really held that it's Kedusha Achas, and that's why the egg that was born on day 1 is going to be Aser on day number 2. And Amar Rav Zeira will conclude with this statement, Rav Asi Mistavra. He says Rav Asi is correct. Even though nowadays we know what day is Rosh Chodesh, essentially, yet we say that it's going to be 2 days. So therefore says Rav Zeira, the 2 days must be a din d'Rabbanan, that it's considered one Kedusha Achasi, and not necessarily because of a suffix. Because how do we know? Because the fact that we observe even nowadays 2 days of Yom when there's no real suffix proves to us supposed to be a din d'Rabbanan that it is created a second day. And we're going to pick up from here. Abaye, who's going to bring a riot to Rav, which will continue our discussion in Kedusha Achas, Kedusha, and Mirz Hashem tomorrow.